Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday edition of the Football Diehards Show. I am Armando Marsal. With me, as always, is Bobby Gomes. How's it going, my brother?
What's up, guys? How's it going with you? Big finish last week in the Wildcat, taking home 10K.
Yeah, man, it was quite the sweat. We pretty much were in touch all Sunday that day, and I kept you posted. It was fun. A couple of snowflakes messed up the big payday. You know, we had Dion Lewis that let us down, Alshon Jeffrey, but overall, very excited, very happy about the payday, and looking forward to this weekend, man. It's an interesting slate, not as great as last week's, but still think a good slate, and excited about it, man. Excited to put some of that 10K into good use this week, man.
Yeah.
How about you?
I hear you. No, it looks like an interesting slate. I think it's actually kind of a difficult slate just from a perspective of you don't really have a guy you're kind of absolutely all in on in cash, and then that kind of makes it difficult in tournaments as well. And the salary cap is pretty much all over the place. We have value at both the running back and the wide receiver position. So I think it's an interesting week. It's going to be a difficult week. Just going to make the right decisions.
Yeah, I think there's no, certified lock here like there was last week. I mean, last week it was Ezekiel Elliott, Barkley, which we spoke about, who were in great spots, and basically you just want to, build around them. This week, I think there's different ways you can build. The only guy that to me seems like a pretty sure lock is Marlon Mack at 5,500. I just think that's too cheap. He gets a really good matchup against the Dolphins, who just are atrocious against the run, allowing over 120 rushing yards per game and 4.8 yards per carry. We see Mack with at least or averaging 19.8 touches per game over his last four. But we'll dig into dig into him when we get to that game. But like you mentioned, there's just a lot of uncertainty here. I think we expect Josh Adams to get the start, but tough to project him for any more than 15 touches. I was actually talking to Bob Harris before the show, and I feel like this is going to be a similar situation like we saw with Jay Ajayi, where he's the quote unquote starter. But we just might not see more than 15 touches, which is really concerning to me, especially if he's going to be chalk. I think I'm going to completely fade him in tournaments and maybe just plug him in cash game lineups. That way I'm with the field at least there. Anything popping out of you as far as news is concerned today? There's still a lot of things that are expected. Marquise Goodwin is doubtful from what I'm seeing here. You're there, Lamar Jackson, obviously. I'm sorry?
Goodwin's out.
He's officially out?
I think so, yeah. Pretty positive.
I think an interesting piece of news here is Devin Funchess is doubtful. I really think that increases. A lot of people are probably going to be pivoting to DJ Moore. I think that really helps out McCaffrey a ton. I think with the usage there, he already has a pretty high usage. So I think that's going to help McCaffrey a ton. And of course, we're going to get, more into these conversations as we get into, these game by games. But just kind of some of the news that has stood out to me this morning here. AJ Green is doubtful, or who was doubtful. He's not going to play this week. So there you go. He was trending in the right direction, but doesn't look like he's going to give it a go. We're going to be getting more news throughout the show, so we'll make sure to keep you posted. Amo does an excellent job helping us out with that, providing some of that info. Let's jump into this game by game, but before we do, let's look at some of these questions. So playing the top team and got to produce big points, stay with Phillip Rivers at QB, or pick Jameis Winston off the waivers and start him. I believe you answered that, and I am 100% on board with you. I as much as I like Rivers, I think Jameis Winston is the pick there. Go ahead, get him off of waivers and start him over Phillip Rivers. And then Edwards or DJ Moore in non-PPR. You put Edwards. I'm on board with you there. We don't know Edwards' role. But Moore seems very volatile here, and this is a season-long question, so price is not really a factor here. So I'm going to go take a chance with Edwards. I like what I saw last week from him, so I do expect them to use him more this week. Full PPR, have to sit one. David Johnson, James White, Nick Chubb, Dalvin Cook. I want to say it sounds crazy, but I kind of want to say Dalvin Cook sits here for me. Your thoughts there?
I think Dalvin Cook sits for me too.
It's between him and David Johnson, but I like what I've seen out of David Johnson, the passing game. And even though they're going to be chasing points here, I think that's going to be able to get him some, receptions, which is going to help you out in full PPR there, Matt. Jackson, Mayfield, or Winston in daily. For me, it's Winston in tournaments and Jackson in cash game.
Yeah, I have the same feelings. I like Jackson in cash, and then Winston in tournaments. I think you'd still go Jackson in cash in tournaments as well. I think I like Jackson in all formats.
Yeah. And then non-PP. Yeah, I mean, I think he's a fine play in all formats as well. I think he's going to be far more owned than Winston in tournaments. So that's the only reason why I would pivot to him.
I gotcha.
I do like Mayfield, though. I do like Mayfield. It's just I really wouldn't know who to pair him up with in this situation. And I just think the other two are so much better this week, guys. Non-PPR flex position, Ebron or Dion Lewis. In non-PPR, you're chasing touchdowns, so I'm going to roll out with Ebron. Eric Ebron.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Ebron too.
All right, and that was it for the questions here. Any before we jump into the slate, I gave a couple of thoughts. I just want make sure you don't have any thoughts on some of this injuries and how it's affecting your line of construction before we start jumping into the good stuff here.
No, you pretty much covered like the majority of what I had to say.
All righty, so it's go time for this game by game here. The first game we're going to jump into is the Cleveland at Cincinnati. We already had a Mayfield question. I think he's fine. This game has a 46 over-under here. It's gone down 1.5 since it opened at 47.5. The Bengals have an implied team total of 23.5 points. The Browns have a 22.5 implied team total. 1 point spread here, which to me seems pretty interesting. I guess that's the green news there that's moving that line. I don't think it's the betting because it's 50-50 on the over-under and 57-43 as far as against the spread. So pretty close there. To me, I really, really like Mixon in this game. I think this is a smash spot for him. The Browns have really struggled against opposing running backs. I like Mixon's price at 6,800 here on DraftKings. He struggled in the last 2 weeks, but he has had some tough matchups. New Orleans Saints, as we've talked about numerous times on the show, they're really good against the run. And then at Baltimore, who another defense that can stuff the run there. So like him here against the Browns at 6,800. I don't hear a ton of people talking about him, so I do think he makes for an excellent tournament play here. I am prioritizing him this week because I really like how my rosters are coming out with Mixon in it. So he's my priority play in this game. I still think there's secondary options. Tyler Boyd is someone that I would have felt much better about if AJ Green was playing. I know it sounds silly, but when he's drawing the number one defender, it seems like he's struggling. We've seen it in the past couple of weeks. It's also potentially matchup based as they have had some pretty tough matchups here, but still someone I would have been much more excited about if AJ Green was playing. On the other side, I mean, Mayfield, like I said, I don't know who to pair him up with, but if you want to, run him out there naked, you surely can. It's not something I'm going to be doing, but, it's definitely something you can consider here. Duke Johnson and Nick Chubb, both interesting plays to me as well here. Give me your thoughts here on this game, Bobby.
Yeah, so do we know that Denzel Ward's going to be covering Tyler Boyd for sure?
I believe so. I can get that for you right now, but I believe he's going to automatically move there because he was expected to see Green. So I'm assuming that he's just going to basically shift to Boyd here.
Yeah, but if Boyd's coming out of the slot, do we know that he covers the slot receiver or has covered the slot receiver in the past? I think we need to figure that out just because if they're in a situation where he's going to see a majority of usage with Green being out and he's in the slot and someone else in Ward's on the outside receiver, it's going to kind of funnel targets to Boyd. I still think Boyd's more of a tournament play than a cash play just with the value that we have at the wide receiver position, but just something we should probably try to figure out. All
right, so Boyd lines up in the slot 73% of the time. Ward goes there 10% of the time. So there you go. He's from what I'm seeing here, it's going to be Brian Body Calhoun who sees Tyler Boyd. who grades out below about average or below average on Pro Football Focus, a 15% advantage rating for Boyd here. So he will not see much of Ward.
Yeah, I like Boyd's price for tournaments at 6K and with Green out. This is a pretty, like, I'm not as high on Mixon as you just because Cleveland's getting a couple guys back on the defensive side of the ball, and I think they're going to add in terms of their run to like their run stopping. They're getting like an all-pro linebacker back and just a couple guys on the defensive side of the ball. And you have to worry about Gio kind of cutting into his touches as well. Kind of high on Nick Chubb. I know he's a away favorite coming in this situation, but I like him and Duke Johnson since he's really struggled versus opposing running backs. Chubb's had 20, 23, and 23 touches in his last 3 games, so that kind of usage is pretty high. Definitely in a situation like this, going against a defense that really struggles to stop the run, and he's only 6,300. So I think he's in a real good spot. I would prefer him to Mixon. I get why you like Mixon though, but I definitely lean Chubb. And yeah, I like Mayfield for tournaments, and I don't know who to pair him with because I'm not playing Jarvis Landry. Just is what it is at this point with him. I just can't figure him out.
Yeah, and I'm with you on Chubb. You know, the only thing that really does concern me there, because I like him. I actually was more bullish on him than Mixon at the beginning of the week. The only thing that concerns me there with Chubb is that they're on the road. But the spread is shifting. The spread is shifting in their favor. And I think that's something that we have to note here. So I like them both quite a bit. I really do like them both quite a bit. And I wouldn't talk anyone off of either of them too. So definitely a good spot here, and good. I think you pointed something good out here that I might have been missing is some of those defenders that are returning for the Cleveland Browns, and something that I will be, kind of digging into as we close out this show today. Anything else here? I really, I think it's a pretty straightforward game. You play the high usage guys and move forward. I really don't think there's anything that you need to get cute about in this game here.
No, I'm with you. That sounds like a good way to kind of talk about it.
All right, Seattle at Carolina. This one is we talked about it, about Devin Funchess potentially sitting this one out. To me, that's an interesting piece of information. As I stated here, this game here, according to the Vegas numbers, we have 46.5 over under. Carolina Panthers have a 24.75 implied team total, 21.75 implied team total for the Seahawks. It is worth noting 66% of the bets are on the over. However, this line still went down half of a point here. Maybe some sharp money on the under here. Give me your thoughts on this game, Bobby.
Yeah, I think from what I've heard, Funchess is out. So I think DJ Moore is going to be pretty chalky, and it's kind of like points that I really don't want to chase, but I feel like I'll chase them in cash and then pretty much fade it in tournaments. Curtis Samuel's a good tournament pivot off of DJ Moore, but I think the guy who really benefits here is Christian McCaffrey. Seattle gives up the third most receptions to running backs throughout the first 12 weeks. So he's the guy as a home favorite that I'm kind of looking at in terms of like my running back that I like for cash and tournaments. I just think he's a really strong play this week. And on the other side, like Russell Wilson for tournaments is going up against this Carolina defense. Like no one's really talking about the Seattle side, and Carolina's been pretty awful all season versus receivers, running backs. The defense just hasn't been what it was. So I like a guy like Lockett, pairing Wilson with Lockett, Wilson with Baldwin. I actually really liked earlier on in the week, if Baldwin was to sit, which was the case, that people were kind of leaning towards. They thought he was going to sit, pairing Lockett with David Moore and running it back with McCaffrey as a game stack. But no, I like Wilson, Lockett, and running it back with McCaffrey as kind of a game stack for this game. That's going to be one of my tournament fixtures, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, to me, McCaffrey is a very strong play in all formats this week. I really don't know What do you project? Do you think he's going to be like super highly owned here? I'm looking at projections, and obviously he's projected to be 21 to 25%. Do you agree with that? I don't know if that's going to be the case here this week, man. I project him a little lower than that.
So I see Chubb ahead of him, and I see Connor ahead of him, and like you said, both are on the road. And I think that's definitely something that you have to take into consideration, like you pointed out. Just because when you're on the road, it's definitely a lot more difficult to run the football. Just because the offensive line has to give checks, and just in case it gets loud, stuff like that. So I'd prefer McCaffrey over Chubb and Connor this week. I know it might be, and I actually prefer him over Saquon too. Like Saquon's $2K more expensive, and he's on the road as well. I think Christian McCaffrey's like the guy you want as like your spend up at running back.
And that's what I'm saying, because I have two different models that I use now for projections, and one of them is projecting him, McCaffrey 21 to 25%. The other one's projecting him at 13%. I think that one's a little bit more accurate there, at least from my perspective. I think McCaffrey's going to be in that 13 to 17 percent range, and I just think that that's too low when you look at this situation. Granted, the Seahawks are a good run defense, but like you mentioned, against the pass catchers, they're a little bit more vulnerable, and we know how good of a pass catcher McCaffrey can be out of this backfield. And I just think that usage in the passing game is so high, and a site like DraftKings, where it's a full point PPR, it just makes so much sense to roster him. I actually like, I'm with you. I don't want to chase those DJ Moore points this week. I think he's going to be pretty popular, especially with this Funches news. I like the idea of going to Tyler Lockett here. I don't think anyone's going to be on him. He's been so efficient all year long. And if you're not going to be rostering McCaffrey, you definitely want exposure to this passing game, I think. Going Lockett makes a ton of sense for me. I'm sorry. You could, like you said, you could run it back with McCaffrey. Run it back with Lockett here with McCaffrey. So like that side. And what do you think about David Moore here?
I like David Moore, but I definitely don't like him as much as I would have if Baldwin had sat. I think Lockett's the guy that you want. Does Lockett draw Bradbury? I think he does.
No, I just looked it up. He doesn't draw Barrett. He actually draws Dante Jackson, which is a little bit tougher of a matchup. Earlier in the week, it looked like he was going to get Shaquille Griffin, but that looks like it's going to be DJ Moore.
David Moore is going to get
I'm sorry. No. David Moore. Sorry. Yeah, David Moore is going to get Bradbury here from what I'm seeing. Sorry about that. DJ Moore and David Moore are confusing me, bro.
Yeah, I don't know. I like Lockett. I think you have to definitely prioritize.
Because Baldwin is not playing either, or he's questionable.
I think he's in though, from what I've heard.
Let me see, because I just all right. Is he in? I saw that he was going to be questionable.
I hope he sits. Like, give me all the David Moore. I'm sorry. We have DJ Moore and David Moore.
Yeah, that's the confusing part, guys. Sorry about DJ Moore and David Moore here. All right, so from Seattle, for me, it's Lockett. I think that's where I'm going to go. And then from Carolina, I'm staying away from DJ Moore and playing McCaffrey. I think that's the best way to do this if you want a game stack. And I think this is a sneaky game stack, like you said. Both of these quarterbacks are options, in my opinion. None of them are a core play of mine, but I do think that they're both definitely in play here.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Any Greg Olsen love here? I think he's going to go under the radar. I think he also benefits, from this situation here. But I just don't know if I'm going to go there this week. At 4,400, he is interesting. I think he's going to have a lot of red zone usage this week. But still, I'm either paying up or going down here.
Yeah, I think you could consider him. I just think with Kittle being there and Brait, I think that I'd rather go to one of those two in cash, and then in tournaments I might rather go down to Herndon.
Yeah, I agree with that. Anything else here in this game before we move on?
Oh, that's pretty much it.
All right, the next game is one. I'm sorry?
Chris Carson, like there's a lot of running back value, and I know that backfield's pretty much muddled, but I feel like there's definitely value in the unknown, and I think the idea that his carries are unknown is kind of like just more of like people saying that than what it actually is. So I think he's in a good spot. I think he could be considered in tournaments as well.
Okay. All right. So to avoid any confusion, I'm just gonna give my guys in this game. I know we had a lot of DJ Moore, David Moore situations here. Tyler Lockett, Christian McCaffrey are the two guys I'm targeting from this game, at least as my top my top plays from this game. Yours are the same, I assume.
Yep.
All right. On to the next game. One that I feel is very uninteresting here, and it's the Jacksonville Jaguars against the Bills. This game has a 37 over-under here. The Jaguars have a 20 implied team total. The Bills have a 17 implied team total. Not a ton from this game. I like both defenses quite a bit. I think Bills at 2,700 makes a ton of sense. They've actually been a pretty solid defense this year, and you know they get a soft offense, in my opinion. You can always talk me into Fournette because of that volume. It's over 20 touches now in each of his game, each of the last two games for him. And when you look at, the usage is just through the roof. 29 touches in week 10, 30 touches last week. And I think the Sirens agree. I think that's robbery there. It just, what kind of usage is that? So you got to consider him. For some reason, I'm not going there. I just don't like the situation. I don't like this game environment for him. They're on the road. I think playing at Buffalo is tough sometimes. So I'm not going there. But listen, that usage is definitely noteworthy, and I wouldn't be opposed if anyone decides to do so there and go with him. But to me, it's more defensive game. And I'm interested in both defenses, especially Bills at 2,700. Any thoughts here on this game, Bobby?
Yeah, I like both defenses. I think LaShawn McCoy at 4,200 kind of correlates with the Bills' defense, and he's just very cheap. I know Jacksonville's like a good defense, but if you think that the Bills could keep this game close or possibly have the lead at any point in this game, with Blake Bortles quarterbacking, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. And the fact that a lot of these Jacksonville guys really haven't played up north too much. So the weather might kind of just play into it. You could go Shady and Bills D in tournaments. I heard people bring up Shady and Cash. I'm not going to go there. I think there's just too much value, especially with Adams now starting. But that's the thing. Like, I feel like a lot of the sharps around the industry are kind of gravitating toward this McCoy play and correlating it with the Bills D, and like just forgetting the fact that like Leonard Fournette's like 260 pounds and runs like a 4.4, and it's going to be freezing cold in Buffalo. He's just going to be a tough tackle. He's going to be around 7% in terms of tournaments. Like, and you just mentioned the volume. Like, I love Fournette, and I like correlating him with Jacksonville defense too. I'd rather play the Ravens or the Eagles, but I get the play. But I think you should definitely be overweight on Fournette in tournaments.
Yeah, I just respect the Jaguars' run defense, man. They've been pretty good all season long. They were able to contain James Conner last week. And to me, at this point, Conner is by far a better running back than McCoy. And I just, you and I spoke about this earlier this morning, and I do agree. We see volume like we saw. What was it? Was it last week or the week before? Yeah, 26 carries last week for McCoy here, 113 yards. Definitely looked good, but we don't see consistent volume from him at all. And I just don't know if he's going to get that 20 plus touches. I know he's very cheap, but I think there's so many ways he can fail here, and very few he can succeed, which is what concerns me about him. If he's going to be chalky in cash and you want to kind of go with the crowd there, I get it. It's very tough for me to click on his name, man. I look at what he's done. I look at the matchup. I look at his efficiency, his usage. It's not there. So definitely concerning to me. But I agree. I think Fournette would be the one player in this game that makes the most sense. I'm not interested in neither passing game, none of the receivers on either end. In fact, the Bills are up there. I believe they're top 3 in DVOA against the pass. So definitely not a favorable situation for Blake Bortles here. Anything else before we move on?
Oh, that's pretty much it.
All right, we got some more questions here. I want to tackle those before we get going on to the next game here. Full point PPR, Aaron Jones or Jalen Richard? Give me Richard. Just if we're talking about full point PPR, the Vikings are good against the run. So that's going to limit what Jones can do. And I don't see him as a huge pass catcher out of the backfield.
Yeah, I like Richard too.
Full point PPR flex, Fitzgerald or Sony Michel. Sony Michel for me, and pretty easy here.
Yeah, Sony Michel is actually pretty interesting in tournaments and on D.
Yeah, we're going to get there because I'm excited about this game. I actually have a couple things that I wanted to discuss with you about this game. So I'm excited when we get to that game, we'll definitely break it down there. Need a flex, full point PPR, either Josh Gordon or Duke Johnson. That's an interesting one, man. I'm going to go with Josh Gordon, but I like them both quite a bit this week.
Yeah, I would go Gordon as well.
All right, so we got some interesting news here. Alex Collins is inactive, man. We haven't gotten to this game, but this is really, like, you see right now, I'm pivoting all the Josh Adams shares to Gus Edwards. I mean, that's just the way I would do this. I think that's huge information there. It looks like, I don't know, man. It looks like they're going to give Edwards the go here.
Yeah, so Edwards is the guy in cash games now.
Yeah, guys. I mean, this is that type of information where you make adjustments accordingly, because this only means to me that Edwards is going to get 15 plus touches. And I said it, if he's going to get 15 plus touches, to me, I like him quite a bit here at, what is he, 3,800, I believe it is, somewhere in that range.
Confirmation that he's a starter, but I'm going to try to find it right now.
Well, there's nothing. And look, let's jump. We've answered all these questions. Let's jump right into it. That's the next game on the board anyways. Oakland at Baltimore. This game has a 42.5 over-under. The Ravens have a 27.75 implied team total. They're 13-point favorites, 14.75 implied team total for the Raiders. I don't think that this, the line is going to move. They're already 13-point favorites. I don't think Alex Collins is going to do anything to that line. Gus Edwards, guys, 4,400, not 38, 4,400. Last week, 17 carries, 115 yards, a touchdown, 22.5 DK points. Listen, I think he is going to be very successful running the ball this week against a really poor Raiders defense. They've just struggled all year long. They've allowed the most rushing yards to opposing running backs this year, 1,310 yards. That's over 130 yards per game. Guys, if we get official word that he's starting, I mean, he's an automatic lock. I still think he's going to touch the ball 15 plus times here. So I'm going to go ahead and make my lineups accordingly with that information. Lamar Jackson is also chalky here. Now, Bobby, this is the interesting decision I think we're all going to have to make now. Are we going to lock in Lamar Jackson and Edwards in cash? I don't think that's a positive correlation. But what are we doing now with this piece of information? Because I think there are other quarterbacks we can use in cash games. But if Edwards is going to get the start, and I'm sure we're going to get that information soon, but if Edwards does get the start, I don't think there's a way you can fade him.
Yeah, I'm still going to use Lamar, I think, because running backs tend to have a better a yard per carry difference when there's a running quarterback behind center with them. So I think it's still a good play. I'm still waiting for Edwards to be confirmed a starter, and then I'm going to plug him in just because if Buck Allen's confirmed the starter, it makes it kind of difficult to play him in cash. you just don't know. I think you still play him, but I don't know. I just want confirmation that he's a starter.
I'm reading here on Roll the World. It says Gus the Bus Edwards will start. Collins inactively is a surprise after he practiced fully on Friday, and NFL Network reported Sunday morning that he would play instead. Rookie Gus the Bus Edwards will start, is what I'm reading on rotoworld.com at this time.
Yeah, I think Edwards is like a lock right now.
Yeah, I agree 100% there. I mean, right now, I'm going to have to make a ton of adjustments because this is going to completely change roster construction as well. Because I wasn't on the Josh Adam train. I really wasn't. So my lineups don't have that, taken into effect. So definitely an interesting piece of information here, guys. It's something that you really have to adjust here. I think Edwards is a lock in all formats. I'm okay with him in tournaments. I don't know. Do you think he's going to automatically be 25% owned in tournaments? I don't think a lot of people are going to make that adjustment. It's an hour and a half before lock, but I still don't think I'm still a believer that unless you're doing this a ton, I still think that there's people that do their lineups and just kind of leave them and go about their Sundays. What do you think Edwards ownership is going to jump to now?
It's definitely going to inflate, but like you said, I don't know if a ton of people are going to go there. Kind of got to be on top of the news. Not everyone pays as much attention as the people that are doing this every Sunday. So, I think he's pretty much a lock in all formats.
Yeah, I agree, man. This is great information at this time because you know what? If you guys are tuning in right now, okay, Edwards is a guy you want to plug and play now. So make sure you make those adjustments. Look, if you're playing the passing game here, Lamar Jackson, I like Willie Snead at 4,400 as well. Over 40% of the market share last week for the Ravens, and that was with Lamar Jackson under center. Very difficult to, predict if that's going to be the same, scenario this week. But this is a weak secondary. This is a weak defense. And if we're going to get, 6 to 8 targets for Snead at 4,400, I think the passes that he receives are high percentage passes there. So he should be able to catch the majority of those. I think a safe floor so long as the usage remains the same. That said, I'm too keen on Edwards now, so I don't think I'm going to go there this week. And no other pass catcher on this offense is someone that I'm looking into just because it didn't appear to be any connection between Jackson or Crabtree or Jackson and John Brown. So not a situation I'm going to be attacking there. And then for the Raiders, I have nothing, absolutely nothing. Unless you have something else there for the Raiders or you have any thoughts on the passing game for Ravens, we can maybe move on to the next game.
That's about it. We could move it on.
Do you have any? Would you consider Snead as a maybe like a high? I don't want to say high floor, but a solid floor receiver at 4,400.
I just think there's better value, but I get it. I think Edwards kind of takes away from Snead. So I agree. Kind of takes away from Snead, especially if they're playing with a lead. I don't think that Snead's going to be needed as much, and it becomes kind of a thin play. They're heavy favorites. Oakland's coming across country for a 1 p.m. start. That's one of the main reasons why I like the running back in this situation, and I like Jackson because they correlate with the defense and that spread. So.
Yeah, it's tough to disagree there for sure here. All right, on to the next game. I think one that's going to be a little bit more interesting, a little bit more fantasy goodness here, and that's the San Francisco 49ers heading over to Tampa Bay to take on the Bucks with 54.5 over under here. 59% of the bets are on the under. That's interesting to me. The Bucks have a 28 implied team total. The 49ers have a 26.5 implied team total. How much Jameis Winston is too much Jameis Winston this week, Bobby?
I don't think they'll bench him on back-to-back weeks if he throws a couple picks. So I think you're good. Whoever the OC there is loves to throw the football. So I guess he's in play. I'm not going to have a ton of him. But you could definitely play him in cash. You could play him in tournaments. I'd just rather go other routes.
Yeah. To me, I think he's a very strong tournament play. He's going to throw the ball a ton. They really don't have a huge running game there. And it just makes a ton of sense. And I like him. I like Adam Humphries a ton in this game. He's, 4K. We know his usage. He's not a high upside guy, but still has pretty good usage. Has really good, a really good chemistry here with Winston. So I like him quite a bit. Mike Evans is a fine play to me. I'm just not prioritizing him here. We have Deshaun Jackson is active, so that definitely does take away from Godwin, in my opinion here, even though Jackson really doesn't have strong connection with Winston. On the other side, I have so much interest in Nick Mullins, man. I think he's such a good play at 5,400. He's done really, really well, in my opinion, in this Kyle Shanahan offense, and he's running this offense, really well here. So I like him. I think it's a great matchup against a really weak secondary for the Bucs here, and that I'd be pairing him up with George Kittle. I just think that's a huge, connection there. Kittle is so good. Regardless of who the quarterback has been all season long, he's just been efficient, man. So this is a week I think paying up for tight end makes a lot of sense. He's one of the tight ends that I really like this week and I'm really bullish on. Give me your thoughts here. I know you have a cheap receiver on the San Francisco 49ers side, but I'll let you elaborate a little bit on him because I do think he's in a good spot as well.
Yeah, Kendrick Bjorn is in a real good spot in cash games, and I think it's between him and DJ Moore, and I'm kind of leaning towards him because I like McCaffrey. So, yeah, in cash. Kittle, I think, is a lock for me in cash. You could also go Brait in this game with O.J. Howard out. And then people like Winston, I'm not really a fan. I'd rather go in a different direction on that side. And Nick Mullins, I'm not in love with it, but I get it for GPPs. I get both quarterbacks for GPPs, but it's nothing I'm ecstatic about.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree. To me, it's more GPP with these quarterbacks instead of cash. I totally agree with that. All right, some information here, man. So Doug Baldwin is active. Torrey Smith is active. Devin Funchess inactive. AJ Green, guys, active. Jordy Nelson is active. Charles Clay is inactive. Marquise Goodwin inactive. Deshaun Jackson active. Ronald Jones inactive. David Njoku is active, and Alex Collins, as we already spoke about, is inactive. Jim, we saw that AJ Green was doubtful, not inactive, but Amo is reporting to us here that he is active. So if you see any contrary reports, please let us know. But at this time, it appears that he is active here this week, and that to me. Oh, there we go. Green is inactive. We are sorry about that, guys. That's what we thought that was going to be the case, but I was surprised there when I saw that. Thank you, Emil, for that information. We do appreciate you, man. All right, so anything else here in this Bucs San Francisco game? It has a high over under, Bobby, but it's one of those games, and we've had some of these this year, and I think we spoke about a couple last week where they had a high over under, and we were just kind of yeah, it's just not a ton of interest. I still like Winston a ton. I just think he has so much upside. And I believe I heard on the radio that he has a pretty interesting prop for touchdowns. It's a 3.5. Might be mistaken, but I believe it's at 3.5 over under. That's an interesting number, man. It really is. I know that might come with 3 or 4 interceptions as well, but still think he has a pretty high ceiling here. Any other thoughts on this game, or you're ready to move on to the next game?
We can move it along. Oh, wait.
All right, here we go.
We should talk about Breda, because I think Breda.
Oh, Cameron Brate. Yes. Oh. Yes, you're right.
No, Breda.
I think. Oh, Matt. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant Cameron Brate. Yeah, Matt Breda, in my opinion, is a very good player.
Tournaments. He's a very good
in tournament,
just because that's the highest total game. And he's going to go extremely overlooked in this situation. So he's someone like in between 5 and 6K that I think is pretty interesting for tournaments.
Yeah, if you're trying to pivot off of Marlon Mack, which we'll talk about later, he's someone you can definitely consider because there is definitely upside, and he's a good running back at the end of the day, Matt Breida. We didn't talk about Cameron Brate. Man, it seems like I don't think it's great chalk. I really don't. I like him. I think he's going to get usage in the red zone, but I don't know. I'm not thrilled about him this week for some reason.
Who, Cameron Brate?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's that total with the touchdowns is the props at 3 TDs. You got to figure Brate at 3,600.
Yeah. They spread the ball so much. That's the only thing that kind of is concerning about the Bucs offense. They just spread the ball so much. Aside from Mike Evans, very tough to decipher where the usage is going to go. Listen, I'm okay with him. He's cheap. I just feel better paying up for tight end this week or just paying down completely. There's a couple guys that I like that are cheaper than Brate this week, and I think pretty decent spots. And we'll talk about them. We haven't gotten to those games yet, but I really like Kittle and Ertz up top, and then some other guys at the bottom here. Any final thoughts? Because I mentioned Ertz, and that's the next game on the board.
Yeah, we can. No, that's it. We could get in the Eagles game.
All right. This game, there's an interesting situation that just happened, and I think this changes a lot for me. The Giants are in Philly taking on the Eagles. This total just jumped 2.5 points to 49 over under. It was at 46.5. 68% of the bets are on the over here. I think this is very interesting. You have the Eagles at a 26.5 implied team total. The Giants at a 22.5 implied team total. This is, to me, one of the sneakier games on the board. I really think you can get players from both sides. I'm very bullish here on Ertz. I know a lot of people are concerned. I've heard on a lot of people in the industry talking about with the situation, with Golden Tate now, it's going to affect Ertz. I completely disagree. I don't think Ertz gets that affected. I know he struggled last week, but you and I pointed this out. The Saints are stout against tight ends. I'm not surprised at all that he struggled. I am surprised at his usage, yes, but I'm not surprised that he struggled here. I expect a bounce back game. I expect him to come at a very low ownership this week because everyone's going to have that recency bias of what they saw last week. Now they're concerned about Golden Tate because everyone's talking about that. Give me all the Ertz this week, man, because I just think he's a phenomenal tournament play. I think there's so much upside ceiling there. We've seen it numerous times this season. If Wentz wants to get back on track, he's going to go to his guy, and his guy is Ertz. So I completely love Ertz this week. I think very strong tournament play here. And then on the other side, Odell Beckham is in a great spot, but to me, the guy you want to target is Sterling Shepard. He let us down last week, but I still think this is a very good matchup for him this week. I like Barkley, of course, his usage is through the roof, but I respect this Eagles run defense quite a bit. I know Barkley does a lot through the air, which is kind of a weakness for the Eagles, but still, I just really like here Sterling Shepard. Enlighten me on your thoughts here on this game because there's a lot to like, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we've streamed tight ends versus the Giants for a while now, so Ertz as a tournament play makes a ton of sense. I like Eagles defense as a tournament play as well. You can still run Barkley and Beckham. I'm not like just with the way the total's moving. If you still want to play one of those guys, I don't care if you roster the Eagles defense. I just think that there'll be points in high scoring games like we've seen like last Monday night with the Chiefs and Rams. Not saying these offenses are the same, but there's obviously more opportunity for defensive touchdowns and stuff like that. So going with a low price defense isn't always the worst way to go. And if you have to, even if it's a negative correlation with a defense versus players in the same game, I think you can go that route here. I like Barkley, like Beckham. I think they're good plays. I like Alshon a ton. I think at 5,800, he's just really cheap. The problem is with Aguilar and Golden Tate, it becomes kind of a situation where you're not 100% in terms of where the targets are going to go. I would lean Ertz as my favorite option in the offense, and I like Jamal Adams. We didn't touch on him at 3,600 just because of the price and how bad the Giants D has been versus running backs, and also Adams' carry touches have definitely been trending upward over the last couple weeks. Like within the offense, it's been pretty drastic. He's looking at an Ajayi-like role within this offense in a game which they should be leading. So I like Adams. I think the game script kind of correlates to him being successful here.
Yeah, and we spoke a little bit about this at the beginning of the show here. To me, Josh Adams, like you mentioned, is going to take on that Jay Ajayi role that we saw last season. To me, what concerns me there is the cap was like 15, 17 touches. I don't think we're going to see that, that usage this week guaranteed. He had, 7 touches or 10 touches last week, 7 touches week 10. He's been very efficient, even in week 8 against the Jaguars, 10 touches, efficient in all those games. Just concerning to me because we haven't seen him touch the ball a ton here. In fact, the highest in a single game he's had so far is 10 touches, which is why I think maybe the cap is 15, and you're going to need him to be as efficient as he's been, in his limited role. To really, get your bang for your buck here. I know you don't need a ton at that price point, but I don't know. With the Edwards news, I just feel like you're getting a far more solidified role for a couple $100 more, and I just think it's worth finding the $400 or $600 more to get to someone like Edwards. I know we haven't received official word if Edwards is starting or not. But it does appear that he is going to get the start. According to Roto World, I don't know their source, but they're typically spot on with this kind of news. So this is an interesting game, man. This really is. I'm with you. I think Golden Tate is at 4,800. He was peppered with 8 targets last week. He didn't get a ton of yardage, only 48. Didn't do much with his usage still, though. 8 targets is worth noting there. I don't know, man. Alshon Jeffrey really burned me last week in a big way. I think he's touchdown dependent. When you look at his games this season, the good games have come when he's found the end zone. The bad games have come when he does not. So I really think we're chasing touchdowns here, and that's really tough for me to do. I'm going to stick to Ertz on that side of the ball. And then on the other side, I think pretty much Sterling Shepard, Odell Beckham, and Saquon Barkley are all firmly in play. Based on how I'm building my rosters, I've been leading to fit in Shepard more. But now with this Edward news, I am going to make adjustments. So I wouldn't be surprised if I land myself on some Odell Beckham here, as he does draw a very, very good one-on-one matchup against Jalen Mills, who grades out well below average. On Pro Football Focus, it is worth noting that the Eagles' secondary is depleted. I believe they're down 5 of their starters here in the secondary, which is huge. So any love for the quarterbacks from either side here? Carson Wentz, I read a report earlier that he's still not fully recovered from the ACL surgery, so maybe that's why we see some ups and downs from him. And then Eli Manning, man, it's just so frightening to roster Eli Manning any given Sunday. But, man, this is a really good spot for him. Any thoughts here on the quarterback situation?
I'm not a big Wentz guy. Everyone loves Wentz. I just don't really love him. And I could see the knee hampering him a little. I think everyone loves him this week, and it's probably for good reason, though, because the Giants are not the greatest defense by any means. So I guess if you want to go Wentz, you can. My own personal bias will probably keep me away from him. Eli with the secondary and at that price, I think he's too cheap. But I think I'd rather roster I don't know. I think there's other guys within that range. I'd rather go up to Wilson or Jackson. I know Jackson's going to be pretty chalky, but I'd definitely rather go up to Wilson. I'd maybe even rather go to McCown or Keenum.
Yeah, I agree. I
Definitely rather go McCown. I don't know about Keenum. A lot of people like the Broncos this week, though.
Yeah, I know you rather go Keenum. I cannot roster Keenum over Eli Manning.
Yeah, I can't
But that's just
Keenum over Manning. I can't. But people do like the Broncos. Like we'll talk about Keenum and the Sanders situation.
Yeah, I actually like the little potential game stack there. But yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, there's so many ways you can go in this game, guys. I mentioned my top plays on both sides. You want to mention yours because I think we pretty talked a lot about this game. So if you want, you can either mention your top plays from each side or your top 3 or 4 plays in general from this game.
Beckham, Ertz, Jamal Adams, and Eagles D.
All right, for me it's Ertz, Beckham, Sterling Shepard, and Barkley. That would be my top 4, and I'm okay with either quarterbacks. Not prioritizing them, which is why I did not write them in my stacks article. But wouldn't be opposed to using any of the 2 quarterbacks in this game. The next game is one, Bobby, that I don't know, man. I'm kind of pivoting to it. I like it quite a bit. And we're talking about the New England Patriots against the Jets. The Patriots are coming off a bye. This game has a 46.5 over under. Patriots are 13-point favorites. That line has jumped 5.5 points, man. They have an implied team total of 29.75, like one of the higher ones on the slate. The Jets have a 16.75 implied team total. Listen, Tom Brady is the most expensive quarterback on this slate. I cannot find a way to pay up for him because there are so many other plays I like that are somewhat expensive. However, I would not be surprised to see Bill Belichick off the bye come in here and just throw it down the Jets. Like just completely demolish this team. Why? Because this passing game has struggled so far this season. And I think he wants to get this team ready for the postseason. We all know they're going to make the postseason. We all know they're going to make noise in the postseason here. I wouldn't be surprised to just see them run up the score. We've seen it. We've seen them do it before. And this situation where to get Brady, kind of comfortable, back in rhythm, I wouldn't be surprised to see him just have a big game here, man. It wouldn't be surprising. I really love Edelman this week. To me, someone that's going completely overlooked. The volume has been there. I know Gronk hasn't played and he's expected to play in this game. I don't think we have official. Actually, we do have official word here. And he is active this week, which brings me to say, are we using Gronk, man? I mean, 5,100. I don't think you're going to get that much this season from him unless he's out basically or injured. But this is a situation, man, where I really like the passing game for the Patriots a ton. I know the running backs are in good spots as well. We talked about Sony Michel, and we know how efficient James White's been all season, man. But this is a situation where I really feel strongly about this passing game for the Patriots. The more and more I dug into it, the more I like it. Give me your thoughts here, man, because I really want to hear your thoughts in this game here.
I actually really like Sony Michel. I think he could have 2 touchdowns in the spot, and he's only 5,800 just with that spread being 10 points. And I like running it back with like McCown and Robbie Anderson, who's active now. They've been saying he was limited all week. Anderson's burned the Patriots in the past. He has a very good rapport with Josh McCown. I think he's going to go drastically underowned in this situation, and I think he's in a fantastic spot.
Okay. So I mean, you're not.
I like Edelman. Like I think Edelman's fine for cash. I think he's going to go underowned as well, and he's in a great spot. Gronk's at 5,100. He's coming off a month. Like he hasn't played in a month. Like if he's going to do it, he's going to do it this week, and that's the cheapest you're ever going to get Gronkowski on a salary based site. So yeah, I don't hate Gronkowski, but I think I'd rather go to like Kittle or Ertz, but like the majority in the industry is going to go that way, and Gronk's cheaper. So going to Gronk, and if he has a 2 touchdown day, like you're probably ahead of the field, and he's definitely capable of having a 2 touchdown day. So at that price tag. Like, yeah, I like him for tournaments. Like he's in the player pool. I think I'd prioritize a guy like Kittle and Cash, and I don't know. Ertz and Gronk is kind of interesting in tournaments. Like if you think about it, Ertz is like almost 1,400. He's like 1,300 more. He's got a couple more receivers to deal with. Gronk's kind of at 5,100, and he can definitely match Ertz in terms of points. So I think I'd probably lean Ertz, but I don't hate the Gronk play.
I think this is a week where you can really play two tight ends. I mean, we don't say that often. I really think this is a week where you can play two tight ends simply because you got Ertz, Kittle, and now Gronk that's active at a cheap, Gronk at a cheap price considering, what his usual salary is. I wouldn't be opposed to playing two tight ends this week, man. I really think that you can certainly make a case for that, especially with the guys we just mentioned here. So yeah, I love Gronk in tournaments. I'm typically not a Gronk guy when it comes to tournaments because he's usually very expensive, and there's a lot of at least this season and even in recent seasons, there's been a lot of disappointing performances out of him. But we did see the type of upside that he does offer in week one, I believe it was. Where he went off for 123 yards and a touchdown. I know he hasn't done anything close to that since then, but he still has that upside. And just for perspective, guys, he was 6,900 in week one, 7K in week two, 73 in week three, and 7K in week four. Even in week eight, 6,700, guys. This is a massive discount here that you're getting on a player like Gronk. Again, the only thing that really concerns me here is a potential blowout and the fact that he's still dinged up, and yeah, maybe they don't fully play, give him a full go here. But I for some reason I just have this feeling that Bill Belichick is going to try to run up the score, and he's going to do it with the passing just to give this team some confidence, this offense some confidence in the passing game here. So, yeah, I agree with you, Michelle, in a good spot. 5,800 seems like a fair price for someone who's going to be playing with a lead quite a bit here. So, like him. Anything from the Jets? I know you mentioned Elijah McGuire here. Is he someone that you still have interest in, considering some of the other value that has opened up at running back?
Earlier in the week, I thought McGuire was a very good value just because of the game script. Figured they'd be playing from behind. But now with Edwards and Adams in that same kind of price range, I think we can kind of pivot off McGuire. Herndon, you had mentioned it. I think he's in a good spot as a low pivot at the tight end position. He would be the lowest I'd be willing to go at tight end, and he's actually pretty cheap at 2,900. But we have a lot of tight end value here, so going down to Herndon might not make much sense in the big picture, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're paying down at tight end, I think going Herndon is fine. I think this is a week you want to pay off for tight end. There's so many good options up top in great spots, and there's so much value that has opened up at the running back position, and at wide receiver there's value. So I think paying up for tight end just makes the most sense this week. I did write that in one of my articles. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it's necessary, to do that this week. So any final thoughts in this game before we move on to the next?
No, we can move it on.
All right, Arizona heading to LA to take on the Chargers. This is another massive spread here. Chargers are 14-point favorites, 28.5 implied team total for them, 14.5 implied team total for the Cardinals, a 43 over-under. Earlier in the week when we had a ton of, doubt that Gordon was going to play, I really liked the Phillip Rivers, Keenan Allen combination, no longer as high on that as I was because Melvin Gordon is expected to play now. Still think Keenan Allen is a fine play. Still think he can get it done here. I do have concerns about the blowout situation here. So that is kind of handcuffing me here and not allowing me to do much with this offense here. So give me your thoughts here. I still think Rivers and Allen are okay plays. I'm not saying that they're completely a fade now, but far less bullish on them now than I was earlier in the week. Melvin Gordon, to me, is a very high-risk play because he's dealing with a couple injuries. And although this is a smash spot in a favorable game environment, they might not roll him out the entire game. They might not need to roll him out the entire game. And I just don't think that it's necessary to plug him in. I don't think it's a ceiling game for him because of that, because I don't see him playing this entire game. And then from the Cardinals side, honestly, I have zero interest from that team. Obviously, you can always make a case for David Johnson, but there's just no need. So the Chargers are one of my top defenses on this slate for sure. Give me your thoughts on this game, because to me it's pretty transparent of what you go here.
Yeah, it would probably be Keenan Allen. You basically broke down Melvin Gordon. I think he was the highest point per dollar play. He was the cash game lock, but with his uncertainty with the knee, and then on top of the fact that they might blow this team out, I don't think you're going to risk it in cash at this point. David Johnson going to go really low owned. Had a 70-yard touchdown called back last week because of a hold on like a 3rd and 23. So people looking at the box score is probably going to go away from DJ. So I think he makes for a good tournament play. But I'll probably save that for the 4 p.m. slate. But at that point, he's going to be chalk. So I don't know. You'd probably want to run him now if you're going to run him in tournaments.
Yeah. I agree. Listen, you can always run him in tournaments, but I just don't think it's necessary this week. I know we had a question on him earlier. We have now a question. Now we're on this game. So is Eckler a good option? Eckler would have been a good option in my opinion if obviously Eckler would have been a lock if Gordon was out, but we don't know really. We can't predict how much Gordon is or not going to play. I just personally don't think he's going to be there the entire game. I don't think they're going to need his services the entire game. I don't know if that necessarily translates to Eckler having a huge role today. Eckler to me is more of a afternoon slate play than a main slate play. Would you agree with that kind of take, Bobby?
Yeah, I think he's good. I think he's the same like with Johnson. Like you can play him in tournaments, and he's more of an afternoon slate play. Yeah, you can play him in tournaments because I think we kind of said that we're kind of both of the opinion that Gordon's they're not gonna go full go with Gordon, or like if this game gets out of hand, it's just gonna go to Eckler, and Eckler is obviously as cheap as he is, but with the value that's like emerged, I don't think you need to go there. It's kind of a similar situation to McGuire.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that take 100% there. So nothing else really in this game for me. So I'm ready to move on here. We have a couple of questions if we want. We can get to those before we move on to the next game.
Yeah.
All right. So standard league, James White or Josh Adams here. I'm playing Wentz over Roethlisberger. Do I want all of the Philly against the Giants? I'm going to stick to White over Adams. I just don't think it's cute in season-long leagues. I don't think it's necessary to get cute there. I think White's the better running back. So I'm going to go White.
Yeah, I like Adams. I think he's just in a really good spot with that spread, and I think he's kind of coming into his own.
All right. Will Sanders go off against Pittsburgh, more revenge, or is he a bad play DFS tournaments? We're going to get to that game shortly. I like Sanders quite a bit this week. I don't know if Bobby is of the same opinion, but in tournaments, I really do like Sanders. So we'll definitely get into that game, Cody, shortly. There's only a couple games ahead of that one at this time. So, in fact, only one. We got 2 games left. So we'll get to that shortly. Here we go with Miami at Indianapolis. Bobby, this game surprisingly has the second highest over-under here, a 51.5. It's jumped up a point since it opened. The Colts have the highest implied team total on the slate at 30.25. 21.25 implied team totals for the Dolphins. Marlon Mack, it's going to be very tough for anyone to talk me off of him. I know he's going to be chalk. I'm going to go ahead and eat this chalk. I think this is a phenomenal play. I mentioned earlier in the show, 19.8 touches over his last 4 games, shown his 30-plus DK point ceiling multiple times in that span. He scored 5 touchdowns in those 4 games. Miami's defense is atrocious against the run, over 120 rushing yards per game, 9 rushing touchdowns, 4.8 rushing yards per carry here. Just a great situation for Marlon Mack. I find it very tough for him to fail, and especially at this price tag. I think this just click the auto lock button and figure it out from there for me with Marlon Mack. I'm okay with playing Andrew Luck. I just don't think they're going to need his services quite that much. I don't think it's going to be a high usage game for him as far as pass attempts is concerned. I've gotten a lot of questions this week about Hilton. Listen, I played Hilton last week. We talked about him on the show. I'm okay with playing him this week. I just don't. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's going to be that type of game for him. Clearly, he has that slate breaking upside like we saw last week, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has another big game. But I'm not expecting it. In fact, I think this week you want to kind of go to the tight ends here. Miami does struggle against tight ends, Jack Doyle and Eric Ebron. We have this conversation every weekend. If I'm picking between the two, it's going to be Jack Doyle. He's on the field much more than Ebron is. Clearly, Ebron has the touchdown equity as we've seen all season, but I think Doyle is just going to see the majority of the opportunities in the long term here. So like him, like the tight ends here quite a bit actually. Don't hear anyone talking about them. They both struggled last week, so I expect something to pop up here. I don't know who's going to score, but I do expect one of the tight ends to find the end zone here. Again, I lean towards Doyle because he's on the field more. But it's just tough to fit them in because I pretty much have the all-in lock button on Marlon Mack this week. Just too good of a spot for me to avoid here. So give me your thoughts on this Colts offense. I have 0 for Miami, like no interest. We talked about this Thursday. There's nothing there that I like. I know you were of the same opinion. I don't know if that's changed, but give me your thoughts on the Colts and then on the Dolphins if you have anything.
So we have an ownership percentage for Mac.
Yeah, I have. I'll pull it up for you right now. All right. So according to one of my sources here, so 1 week season projection has him at 13%. And we have the Fantasy Lab projection has him at 21 to 25%. I think we're going to see Mac closer to 20% here.
Okay. Who's the highest owner running back on the slate? Do we know?
Well, this is the thing. According to Fantasy Labs, we have 6 running backs projected at 21 to 25%. The other projection system has Barkley and Chubb at 23%, everyone else below them. Kind of think that that's where it's going to go. I really do think that you're going to see Saquon Barkley and Chubb as the 2 higher owned guys this week at the running back position. I do think Marlon Mack is going to be hovering in that 20% too. But I'm far from an expert at projecting ownership, to be honest with you. I just use a bunch of systems to kind of gauge and I try to get an average as to what to expect here. But I do think that Mac is going to be in that 20% range.
Yeah, no, I think Fantasy Lab is probably pretty accurate. If Mac was higher, I wouldn't mind fading him with all the value around. If Chubb's going to be the guy that's going to be the highest owned, you can fade him with Mac, Michelle, or Breda. Just thinking about it from that perspective. I don't know. I like Mac. I'm not going to chase TY. I think Mac's in a good spot. I'm not going to play a lot of Andrew Luck. I'd like to get up there, but I just can't. And on the Dolphin side, I don't really think there's much.
No, I mean, listen, would I be surprised if Drake pops off? No, he's talented. He's explosive, but just it's been such an odd year for him that there's just really no basis, nothing to, to go by. I mean, nothing. It's just a thing that, can he do it? Absolutely. Do I expect him to? No. So to me, it's just all Colts and no Dolphins and move on from this game. All right, ready to move on to this last and final game. I think it's a very interesting one. We've gotten a couple questions. We're going to get to those now. We have the Broncos hosting the Steelers, a 47.5 over-under. The Steelers have a 25.25 implied team total. Broncos have a 22.25 implied team total. Listen, Bobby, this is a game where I think the winner of the Millionaire Maker is going to have ownership in this week. I don't hear a ton of people talking about it. I think Antonio Brown is super interesting. I think Juju Smith-Schuster is interesting. I think James Conner is very interesting. And Emmanuel Sanders, running it back with Emmanuel Sanders is the way to go. I think here, I really like this game. Give me your thoughts here. Give me who you're looking at, because I know you have some interest in this game as well.
Yeah, I like Connor. I think he's a cash play and tournament play that you can consider. I like Sanders. I think you can run it back with Sanders. You have the revenge narrative going. I think Keenum's going to look to him early and often. I think he's in a real good spot. And Antonio Brown's definitely going overlooked at his price tag. Juju as well. Ben's home road splits usually they're pretty drastic, but it's more of a 1 p.m. thing than a 4 p.m. thing. So I think he's even going to go a little under owned, and at that price tag in tournaments could be a pretty good leverage play.
Yeah, I agree there. I agree there. So my decision, honestly, like in my tournament lineups this morning and last night when I was constructing, was do I want Connor at his usage, or do I want to go with Antonio Brown at lower ownership and high upside? Still undecided there. I'm probably gonna mix and match. 50. I wouldn't be surprised if I end up 50% of my lineups with one and 50% of my lineups with the other. I really like them quite a bit. Running it back with Emmanuel Sanders just makes a ton of sense too. The usage is going to be there for him. I believe the only thing that's concerning me, because he's expected to see Mike Hilton in this contest, which is a tough matchup for him. It really is a tough matchup. Hilton grades out way above average here. We know that Sanders lines up in the slot 63% of the time. Hilton is in the slot 98% of the time. So they're going to have to move Sanders out of the slot to avoid that tough matchup. That's the one thing that really does stand out to me and concerns me about Sanders. Still think that he's a fine play, especially in tournaments here, because the volume is going to be there. And I think this is going to be a very good game environment. I know Big Ben doesn't play well on the road. I still think there's going to be a good game environment here for the passing game, for both sides of the passing game here. I think it's a good spot. 6 targets in week 11 for Sanders, 9, 4, 7. But still someone that Keenum has an eye for there in Denver. Any thoughts on Jeff Heuerman here?
I guess you can like him. Yeah, I don't have an issue. The Steelers are really terrible versus tight ends. He's one of the better pass catchers. I think Lindsey's also in play, especially if they're playing from behind. He tends to go overlooked. I really liked him last week, and he went off. I wish I played more of him. I had like 100% of him on the 4 p.m. slate, so that kind of worked out. I like Heuerman. I like Lindsey. I like these guys playing from behind at home.
Yeah, and he's, to me, a good pivot play off of Brate if you're trying to avoid that that high ownership at tight end position there. This is it for this game. This is it for this slate. Give me, any final thoughts here? I know we've had a lot of news throughout the game that has kind of made some changes. As soon as we get off, I am going to reconstruct my cash game lineup and make some changes to my tournament lineup as well. Hopefully we've been able to help you guys here with all of the news and all of the moving parts in this slate. Usually we don't have this many moving parts and this much news that will impact, but today we do have that. Any final thoughts on this slate, Bobby, before we move on and get going?
Yeah, this is a tough slate, guys. Pay attention just to all the news and everything that's happened. Everything's kind of pretty much set in stone now, but it's definitely good to take another check back and make sure everything's where you want it to be, because there's definitely been a lot of moving parts that you have to pay attention to.
Yeah, and on weekends like this, guys, like where it's a tougher slate, it's okay to play less. I mean, I do that. I'm sure, Bobby, you're very, selective with your slates as well. I know that. So it just, kind of a, information and how we think of it every weekend. Last week was a great tournament slate. We talked about that. And, This week just seems like a tougher slate. I think the chalk is pretty clear, so I think everyone's going to be on the same chalk, and I think a lot of moving parts as to the 1 versus 1s in your tournament lineup. So just keep that in mind when you're rostering into tournaments or into contests. Just there's no need to overdo it. We're still going to have another slate next week, so just make sure to keep that in mind, guys. And tougher slates, I typically like to lessen my volume as far as money is concerned. So food for thought there. Bobby, you want to let everyone know where they can contact you if they have any questions heading into the rest of the day and anytime throughout the week.
Yeah, Bobby Gomes DFS on Twitter.
Yep, and I am at Armando_Marsal. Thank you guys for tuning in. We are here every Sunday, 11 a.m. We also are on Thursdays, 7 p.m. that is, talking about the Thursday night slate, and then we'll break down the game-by-game slate as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out footballdiehards.com, guys. There is a promotion right now, 2 weeks free. Got to check that out if you're not already doing that. And I am Armando for Bobby. Good luck to everyone this weekend, and we will see you next week.